Hello, my name is Gavin. This is Genre Books. It is my 2K subscription video, and I have a very special guest who I'm going to submit to his interrogation. It's Steve from Steve Donoghue.
Hello, BookTube. I am once again inquisiting someone who has reached a milestone. People are going to stop reaching milestones. This is what awaits them.
So you have the questions that have been submitted.
Yes, Gavin, call.
I know those ones. I don't know anything that you may ask.
I will probably follow up on some of these, although they're really good. You got a lot of great questions. So we start with Book Chat with Pat, who has a barrage of questions. Number one is, tell us how you became interested in the pulps.
I became interested in the pulps through Project Gutenberg because first and foremost, I am a skinflint, and I'd read some Asimov recently, and I thought, you know what, I want to read some more Asimov. I wonder if there's anything there that's in the public domain. And I think there was one story, because the bigger writers managed to sort their copyright out. So there is very little Heinlein, there is very little Asimov, there is very little Bradbury. But alongside the one or two returns that came from that search, there was lots of other things. And I was like, oh, okay, so I've heard of this magazine. And then I look at that, and then I look at something else a little bit more. And then there just started to be lots of names that I was not familiar with. Roger D.
All those figures had contemporaries, many of whom were as talented as they were. Just didn't have the right
Lesser. Yeah, there are some brilliant ones. There's I really like Basil Wells. He's always, there's a little bit of humor in there. Nelson S. Bond. I mean, these people made it into some of the compilations and anthologies, but you don't see their works unless you see them in a secondhand bookshop, and very, very rarely. So, Charles S. Tanner, and look, and amongst that, all of the pseudonyms as well. So, you think you know a writer, and then you realize there's actually somebody else. And then, as I got into that, that was the science fiction way of looking at it. And then I said, well, actually, this science fiction writer also wrote mysteries, or also wrote westerns. And then, oh, there's a pulp for that as well. So, you then go and start looking at a myriad of different directions. So it's through a main name that I got into, fell down the rabbit hole and looked at everything else. So, yeah.
And we should clarify for some viewers that Project Gutenberg is an online depository of books that have fallen out of copyright. Tens of thousands of them. So you have to be an e-reader. But if you e-read, it's an unbelievable resource. Just Google Project Gutenberg. You'll go right there. And it's a banquet of stuff. And you got into the pulps of Project Gutenberg. It was the very first time I've ever heard that route of approach. Since you now have read all of, sorry to expand on a question, but since you've now read a lot of these old pulp magazines, do you ever feel the urge to collect them, or is the skinflint part coming into play there?
That does come into play. I mean, you can say, "Oh, I really like weird tales." Good luck to you.
Exactly.
If I see some cheap, I will get them. But I prefer the American ones. And there were British pulps and British versions of American pulps, but I really do prefer the American ones. And you do get some, but you don't get a lot. You get some because they were used. They came over with the GIs in the Second World War. They were actually used as ballast. It was because they were so plentiful. But you don't see anything after that. I mean, we do have our own. We've got our own printings of I think Isaac Asimov's magazine, more on the digest side. We have New Worlds. Michael Moorcock edited that. But I mean, these are much later. So if you're looking for 30s and 40s, some late 20s as well, it's got to be the American side of things. but you find the British writers in there as well. So you've got people like John Russell Fearn and John Wyndham, and anyone who could put pen to paper stood a chance of getting into one of these magazines when they were proliferating.
Well, Pat goes on to ask, I know you're a musician / composer and very interested in music. Who were your favorite bands when you were growing up?
Okay, well, I'll try to sort of, temper the composer bit down a bit. I put together some tunes now and then. For me, I suppose, I started listening to pop music when I was, 10, 11 years old. And then I started getting into something like, rock or heavy metal. That was the alternative music at the time. So even then, though, I was looking towards the older stuff. So I was listening to Led Zeppelin, I was listening to Rush, other rock bands, and then more sort of independent rock bands. So then it was the contemporary stuff was the Pixies or Jane's Addiction for American stuff, and Senseless Things, Mega City 4 for the British stuff. And then it just expanded from there. Then it's like, okay, the Beatles. I hear people talk about the Beatles. And then it's electronic music, and then the Penguin Cafe Orchestra, or soul music, or reggae music. So it's just, I try to keep finding new things all of the time. So the latest one I really like is a band called Descartes Acant, who are a Mexican art rock band who are absolutely fantastic. And then I found out they've been going for 13 years. Never heard of them before. They're very underrepresented. But
now, despite all of this exploring, does the mood ever come upon you to just sit and listen to one of your earliest favorites?
There are some that I will keep going back to. There are some that I've moved on from, but I will still go back and listen to a Led Zeppelin album. I will still go back and listen to a Rush album every now and then, or Frank Zappa stuff I was listening to at the age of 13, 14. But
I'm reliably informed that Rush is still touring.
They're going to start again. They're only doing, I think they're only doing US and Canada.
It's not a cheap show. The ticket prices are
no. So I saw them in I'm going to say 1991, possibly 1992. So I think I'll treasure those memories rather than watch. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When it's a band who are just coming back to do the greatest hits for the biggest bucks, then I'm not really interested. But a band that I've been to see twice in the last 3 years has been Sparks. Who, do you know Sparks?
Oh, good luck. No. For me, it's all John Philip Sousa all the time.
I'm sure they were probably
these long-haired weirdos that you're talking about.
They have been going so long, and they have such a varied repertoire. I'm sure there is a march in there somewhere. In fact, I know there is a march in there somewhere called "Get in the Swing." But they're a Californian duo. They're brothers. They have been going since the late 60s. One of them is 80. One of them is 77. He bounces around the stage like a man half his age, and his voice has held up where so many rock voices do not. They're absolutely fantastic. So yeah, probably my favorite band that I go back to again and again at the moment.
Pat goes on, you're obviously extraordinarily well read in many areas, and especially in science fiction. Who were your earliest favorite science fiction writers? Who are your favorites now?
Probably the earliest is going to be somebody like Nicholas Fisk, who was, I think he was a children's science fiction. He wrote, I remember reading again and again a book called Starstormers. Yeah, okay. And it had another one called Grinny. They were fun, but they were really for kids. Then it was John Christopher with his Tripods series, which, there is John Christopher who wrote for kids, and there is John Christopher who very definitely writes for adults. These are on the kids' side. But then that's your gateway to reading other stuff.
So you read John Christopher's Tripod books before you read War of the Worlds?
Yes.
Interesting.
80s kid. I think there was a BBC series of the tripods, so I think that would be my. There's books as well. And they're in the school library. So,
and when you say that you read your first books over and over and over again, did you own them?
The ones, yes.
Or are we talking about the library?
I don't think I read the tripods over and over again. Starstormers I owned and read it over and over again. The novelization of Return of the Jedi I read on a loop probably for 6 months.
Really?
Well, you go to see the film, and I was 7 or 8, absolutely just sort of besotted with the movie. And it's like, oh, here's the book. I get to experience it over and over again. So,
the author of the novelization of Return of the Jedi had not been born when I was 7 or 8, so I'm going to have to take your word for it. That is that is so charming to just picture that.
And then as I grew up, John Wyndham, Douglas Adams, Isaac Asimov, basically the stuff that you would see in, you would be able to pick up for 10 pence, 20 pence at a secondhand bookshop or a jumble sale or something.
And did you do that as you got older? You haunted and bookshops?
As I got older, it then changed again, and possibly left science fiction a little bit as I became, more teenager and conceited, and felt like I had to put away these childish things, and I should read proper literature. So probably far too early. So I was like, oh, I will read Sartre. I will read Camus. I'm 15 years old. I should not have been doing it. But at that point, by that point, you're studying English literature at school, and therefore it's just opening new vistas. So less time to read all the stuff you really enjoyed, and time to find out more things that you might enjoy. But like with the music, some of them remain favorites. Asimov, I think Wyndham especially. Wyndham's quite a special writer. But for now,
Wyndham is very revisitable.
Yes,
I go back to him. Not everybody you can. But he's one you definitely can go back to. But what about going forward? What about, do you read any contemporary science fiction?
A little bit. And I'm doing this project starting in April where to commemorate 100 years since the first issue of Amazing Stories, I'm going to read a science fiction novel from every year from 1926 to 2026. And there are obviously going to be a lot of modern ones in there. It gets more difficult because as the years go on, the books get fatter and fatter and fatter.
Yes, yes,
but I've started recording these already to save me a little bit of pressure. But I just finished this one last night, so this is not modern, but it's new to me.
Oh my! Oh my! What made you pick that?
I have to choose the particular year, so I'm doing one from each year. Which ones came out each year? And I thought, do you know what? I remember the film fondly, possibly incorrectly. But it's not a classic. But
the only way that we're going to cheese off the film bros when I say that the only way to remember that movie fondly is to remember it inaccurately. They're gonna go crazy.
It is absolutely true sometimes. This is where all that anger stems from about the new Star Wars films. It's like they don't realize these are made for children and adolescents. You are only one of these things still.
Well, Pat moves on from science fiction to steampunk. She wants to know what your favorite Victorian novels are.
Well, there it gets a little bit, it's Victorian, so it's a bit more traditional. But I don't have any sort of stuff that's too far out there. Vanity Fair, I think, remains a favorite. Great Expectations. I think that's I haven't read all of Dickens, but of the Dickens I've read, that's the one I think I've enjoyed the most.
But where do these fall on the Gavin timeline? So you left science fiction, you went to Sartre. Eventually, you came to your senses and left Sartre and all of those people behind. But you didn't immediately go back to science fiction, did you? Or
well, by this point, I was doing A-level English, so between the ages of 16 and 18, and some of this came about through assigned reading. But having enjoyed it, I sort of wanted to do other things. So our assigned Dickens was Hard Times. But as well as that, I read Great Expectations, which was not required of me, but I really enjoyed it. We read
a hell of a lot more than you enjoyed Hard Times. Hard Times is an odd choice as a required reading of Dickens. That's an odd one.
Yes.
It's short. It's relatively short. So
yeah, and you're in a class all reading this thing together, and it's just like the opening salvo of that book is all about the grinding monotony of education.
Pat finishes up by asking, you frequently mentioned that your lovely wife, Mrs. Genre Books, was very helpful in your brilliant Lost Penguin series. For those of you who don't know the context here, Gavin did a series of Penguin classics that are no longer in the classics line. Absolutely great viewing. Did Mrs. Genre Books also study literature at university? Do you think she can be persuaded to make an appearance on your channel? And here the manosphere wants you to say that you don't allow her to be educated. but maybe you aren't up with the manosphere.
Well, they're going to be disappointed because she's the brains of the operation. With the Penguins and in many other things.
See, that kind of thing drives them crazy because they're always the brains of the operation, and that drives them crazy because they know that.
Yes. So just admit
There's another segment of the audience lost. We've lost the music bros. We lost the movie bros, and now we've lost the dude bros.
So yes, she did study literature, and she studied literature at the same university as me, at the same time as me. That's where we met. We didn't get together until a few years after university, but that is where we met. But she did pure English literature degree, and I did English and American literature. So some classes were the same, others were markedly different.
Oh my. We'll have to get back to American literature. But let's move on to we're done with Pat's questions. We're now on to Alan Reed's. What books are you most looking forward to coming into the public domain in 2026? Because for everybody in this little corner of BookTube, you are Mr. Public Domain. We wait every year for you to tell us, give us a rundown, and not only tell us what's coming into the public domain, but tell us about them.
I have just done a video on this, which is the reason that I've got to 2,000 subscribers, because it took off in a crazy way. But there will be some Robert E. Howard coming out into the public domain. I can't remember the names of them, but he had such a short writing career. This is we're hitting that seam of public domain now, where 95 years after they were first published, they're going to be coming out. Over the next 5-6 years, you're going to see a lot of it. I want to read a J.J. Connington mystery, and there's one coming out this year called The 2 Tickets Puzzle. I haven't read one of his mysteries before. The only I've got one book of his on my shelves called Nordenholt's Millions, Nordenholt's Million, which is a science fiction book, and it's there's been a plague, it's a disaster, dystopia kind of affair. Also on the science fiction front, there's the Iron Star by John Taine, who was a mathematician by trade. I think his real name was Eric Bell. And lots of the books written under that name are all academic mathematics books. But in his spare time, and in the guise of John Taine, he wrote pulp science fiction. So the Iron Star is coming out. And then for Westerns, Destry Rides Again comes out into public domain, which I've not read. And Cimarron by Edna Ferber. Ferber? It is Edna Ferber, isn't it? I think that was the biggest selling book of 1930, so that will definitely be in the public domain at some point this year.
And she was she's a foremost example of someone who was a massive bestseller who deserves to be forgotten. But she's gonna come back into the public anyway.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it and possibly forgetting it then.
Comics Bros, one of the only slices of the audience we have not alienated yet, they are salivating for Batman and Superman, which
so this
years off.
This comes in the next few years. So I worry what the lobbyists might do to forestall this.
Well, the mega corporations have a whole bunch of options, right? Because they can put a lot of weight behind the difference between copyright and licensing. And also they can pounce on people who misunderstand what it means for Batman, for instance, to fall into the common domain. It means just the Batman from that year. So yes, all the stuff that you recognize is not in the public domain. And if you think it is a mistake, they'll pounce.
Yeah, you will not be able to dress up in your Adam West Batman outfit, unfortunately.
Nope. You will not have any of the accoutrements at all. None. Not even the costume is the same. Barely. So
yeah, so Batman will be coming into the public domain. Robin will be a few years after. But
we move on to Heather Gregg. I'm going to try not to take her question personally. She writes, how many hours approximately did it take you to make your year's copyright video, including research, photos, presenting, and editing? And then in parentheses, aimed squarely between my eyes, she writes, I suspect it will prove my theory that time spent prepping results in quality on screen. Well, you can be a peacemaker here and step in to calm the waters.
Editing takes me a lot longer than lots of other people because I'm a stumbling, mumbling, stuttering fool when a camera is put in front of me.
I never hear booktubers say that about themselves during a Q&A when they aren't also simultaneously demonstrating that it's not true. It's amazing.
When I'm talking with someone, it's fine. When I'm talking to a camera, I don't know. It's not stage fright. It's just an inability to finish a sentence. But researching it took. Well, I dipped into it. I didn't do it in one big block. I was looking at stuff throughout the year. So I would look at what was published in a year. I would look at maybe what had won prizes, and then I'd look at. The easy wins are writers who went into the public domain last year, so there must be something from this year as well. So what Agatha Christie was it this year? What Edgar Rice Burroughs was it this year?
And what's the understructure? Do you keep like a BookTube notebook?
I put it on my Kindle Scribe. I used to run on notebooks, and they just get out of hand because if I want to look at something from a couple of months ago, I don't know which notebook that is. And
yes, electronic notes are searchable.
Yeah. So it is done on the Kindle Scribe now. Sometimes if I've got lots of notes on the Scribe, I will then have to copy it out into a final set of notes on paper because it just helps me organize my thoughts. And then I can actually go, you know what, I've got this to refer to. So I'm not doing a video where I've just got the glare from the Kindle in my face.
Do you read on your Kindle? On the Kindle Scribe?
I do, because I read a lot of public domain stuff. I've got another Kindle as well, which the one I owned before this. But I find the Kindle one of the reasons I got the Kindle Scribe, I can get PDFs and read old pulps as they were presented. Whereas if it was just on a normal Kindle, it is far too small for anyone to read, and you can't expand it because they don't expand PDFs. Right. I still have to squint even on the Scribe, but less so. And you don't want to miss all of those wonderful sort of
and apart from the big production videos, like copyright videos or whatnot, or lost penguins. What about a quote unquote normal video? How much preparation or work does that tend to take?
It depends what it is. If it's a tag, it's nice and easy. It's done for you. I go through the questions. I might jot down an answer or two, but I have the questions in front of me, and sometimes, depending on how it is, I'll just busk it.
Well, sometimes you have to take notes on a tag, right? I mean, if a tag says, "What was your favorite book from 1981?" You can't. You have to research that. You can't know it off the top of your head.
But those can be fun. Those with the really sort of left field questions. I mean, I'll be doing one for next Tuesday, where there are 14 prompts, and 3 of them are scenarios, and the scenarios are half a page long. I mean, my answer might be just like, a sentence or two, but there's a huge setup to perhaps a very little punchline. But some things take a lot longer to organize than others, but it's part of the fun. Sometimes I can just get a little bit angry about something, stick a camera on and go through it. But normally I will try to at least structure a little bit what I might like to say.
How much, if I may ask, how much calm structuring went into your response to Ryan Holiday? You had some real good zingers in that video. Ryan Holiday, the fake stoic influencer, dead-eyed, autistic, fake-eyed, cynical influencer, made a video about the rules for reading that'll make you a better reader.
Probably about half of what I said was thought out, and the other half was stuff that occurs to me at the time. I felt I had to give a little bit of preparation to that, because there were, there's 30 odd rules for reading, and it's like, well, I'm not going to remember all of these, so I've got to write them down. And if I'm writing them down, I might make don't forget to mention XYZ. But yeah,
that got a lot of responses from booktubers. Your response was so thorough that it convinced me I didn't need to make one. But the one thing that I was so happy about is that every single booktuber made a response mentioned that nowhere, anywhere in his discussion is any hint that you should enjoy reading.
Yeah,
it's just absent. It's not there at all. You're talking about return on investment, ROI, and that's it. Very happy to see that. It shows me I'm in the right crowd. If we move on to Marlicia's meanderings.
Yes.
My main question is simply, with work and daily life, how do you make time to record consistently?
It's like batch cooking. I do it all on a Saturday and a Sunday morning, usually. So I'm working during the week. So I will write notes and think about what I want to do at the weekend throughout the week. I get up early on a Saturday and a Sunday, and most importantly, I neglect my family, because I'll record from, it might be from 7 till 9:30 or something, and then I will spend a few hours editing after that. So it's a very much a weekend warrior approach to
and then you dole out the videos over time.
Yeah, so I will schedule them all. Yeah.
So how many people at your work or your family, what do they think of you being a booktuber?
Well, it's only my immediate family that know. A couple of people at work know, and it's no big thing. There are very, very few people at my work who I've ever seen with a book.
Yeah. So it's not even that they wouldn't even be interested.
No, it's the old, what are you reading for question. Not what are you reading, what are you reading for?
Right. Oh.
And if I do see someone, I might get excited. If someone's got a book and it's some god awful self-help, or probably something by Ryan Holiday.
I get that impression from a lot of booktubers, that it's not that they're hiding what they do, it's that they know that no one around them would be interested.
Yeah.
That is so sad. We can move on to Cat Jack. Has a barrage of questions. Number one, have you been to Sissinghurst yet, or another historical literary site that impressed you in some way?
Yes. Because I am middle-aged and middle class, I have my National Trust membership. So Sissinghurst is very close to me, about 25 minutes, half an hour's drive away. So we've been on 3 or 4 occasions. So I'm sure you'll know, but for people that don't, Sissinghurst
many times.
It was the home of Vita Sackville West and Harold Nicholson. It's a lovely place, big old garden. It's got a lovely library where you can't touch the damn books. But there are a few places in the local area. So this is sort of Kent and parts of Sussex, which have literary connections. So in the last year or so, I've been to Bateman's, which was Rudyard Kipling's home. Chartwell, which was Winston Churchill's home. And they're fairly close together. So if you want to do them in one day, you could go and see 2 Nobel Prizes for literature. There's Monk's house, which was Virginia Woolf's house. But my favorite was a place called Lamb's House in Rye, which was, because it's a triple whammy. It was the home of Henry James. And after Henry James passed away, it was rented by E.F. Benson. And after E.F. Benson passed away, it was rented by Rue McGodden from Black Narcissus. So the place is just full of literary history. And you sort of think of all the stuff that would have been written in that house. It's that's quite a lot of fun.
Do you have a dream list, a bucket list of such places?
I've probably done a few of them. I should really do more in London. I want to go to that pub that Dickens talks about. There's also, there's places for Samuel Johnson's, some of his haunts. I don't know if his place is still there. Thomas Carlyle's apartments are still sort of as they were. They are a bit of a museum, so there are some to go to still.
And for you, would the priority for these kinds of excursions be literary instead of historical?
They're usually a bit of both. We do go to ones where there is no literary background. So, if it's just, royalty or something. But a national trust properties, there's an 80% chance there is a bookshop attached to it, like a secondhand bookshop. So they take in donations, and they're taking, to be snobbish about it, they're taking in donations from people who, have decided to choose the National Trust to leave their books to. So you can pick up some really great stuff, and you can pick up some absolute dross as well.
Cat Jack goes on. What were your favorite books at different ages? A child, a teenager, early adult? Have your taste changed or developed? We can concentrate on the second one there since we've covered the first one. But what about your reading tastes? Do you feel that they are still changing?
Yes.
And does BookTube help with that?
Yes. I don't think I'd read a Western prior to BookTube.
Prior to
they were, when I was growing up, old man's books. And if you ever see them in the library, and you don't see them in the library very often now, they still are, because they are all the large print ones. So these are books, specifically designed for people with failing eyesight. I don't know if developed is the right word. It's like my waistline is just expanded over the years. I think, when I was doing my bachelor's, when I was doing my master's, that's the point where it was the most, perhaps, it was the most I don't want to say sophisticated, but I don't know what the other word might be. It was the most rarefied sort of choices of literature because that was what you were doing day in, day out. Maybe going back to sort of genre fiction, going back to pulps after, or going to pulps after this is a little bit of a reaction to that. I still enjoy literary fiction, but it is just I want to read everything, which is, you know, a problem.
Is that problem accentuated by the whole Saturday and Sunday morning bit that you mentioned? You are using potential reading time.
Yes.
To make videos. That's a common complaint of booktubers, is that it gets in the way.
Yes,
all
and no.
insist on having these things called jobs. I don't really understand it. Very strange behavior on your part, but it does seem to eat into your free time.
it helps me buy books. There's the excuse. I mean, yes and no. It eats into potential reading time, but I don't know. I actually think sort of the social fun of it, perhaps the peer, maybe not the peer pressure, because you're not pressured to read more by other booktubers, but you start at the beginning of the month, you say, well, these are going to be my plans for reading. And it's like, well, I don't want to make myself a liar. I'm going to try, as insofar as possible, meet those tasks I've set for myself. So it makes me read more, as well as detracting a little bit of time. I don't know whether I would have used that time for reading were I not making BookTube videos.
And BookTube has to be a net positive, right? Even
Yes.
with disrupted plans. You can have all the most neatly constructed plans in the world for your reading for a certain month, and then you watch a video where a person whose opinion on books you respect holds up something that you only barely ever considered in your life and enthuses about it for 15 minutes. You're going to have to be made of iron not to be affected by something like that, and maybe give it a try.
And if it's something that's on my shelves, that's a real magnet.
Oh, yeah, you go to it right away if somebody does that.
If it's not, then it goes on a little list or in the back of your head, and you will be on the lookout for it. I mean, I'm fortunate in the booktubers that I follow that everyone, not many people, do lots of modern fiction. So if someone is showing, you know, if someone's excited about something, it might be something that's, you know, it's from the backlist. So
right.
It's not going to cost me £20 to get the hardback. And if it, you know, I will wait a few years until I see it cheaper.
Let's see here. We're still on Cat Jack. Question number 3. Did you have a teacher or mentor who had a very positive effect on your reading?
So when I did GCSE English, which is like the English literature that everybody has to learn, the teachers I had were not that inspiring. Some of the work was, some of the, you know, that's the point where you first encounter Shakespeare and what have you, but maybe I just didn't get lucky. It was actually a science teacher who, because I would always be talking about books and whatnot when we were doing our leaving books. So we all run around with exercise books when we're leaving at the age of 16. And he wrote down a bunch of books that I should read. That was the message. And that's really nice. I mean, he had the most amazing alliterative name. He was called Clifford Crump. And he, so on that list was Madame Bovary, was John Steinbeck. I can't remember what else. I wish I still had it. And there was music as well. So it's like, well, you've taken an interest, so I'm going to fulfill that. And that summer between GCSE and starting A level, I read Madame Bovary, which is, you know, what every 16-year-old boy does.
But that moment when you realize that creative, genuine enthusiasm exists in the adult world.
Yeah.
That someone from that adult world, even if it's, in this case, unfortunately, not your teacher, where you could legitimately say it's their job to do it, but someone from that adult world is reaching their hand out to you and saying, you're going to love this. You might not love these specific things, but you're going to have this kind of enthusiasm in your life. That can change everything when that happens. For you, as a science teacher.
Showing an interest in something that wasn't, he knew I wasn't going to do science. I mean, I did okay in science. It's just I didn't have the passion for it. It was always going to be the literature. Once I got to A level, that changes a bit because everyone who's at A level has chosen English literature as their subject. So everyone is, a little bit more enthusiastic. And the teachers, in fairness to the teachers, they're not having to drag some of the kids along with them. Everybody wants to be there, which makes for a more positive atmosphere.
And what about now? That kind of urging, and no teachers anymore, but that kind of urging on, I'm assuming, is largely BookTube.
It is. It's, I don't want to single people out because there are so many booktubers. I mean, sometimes we're all reading sort of vaguely similar things because we have the themed events, but there are people that if, they say this is good, I'm going to pay attention to that.
It's amazing. It's so much better than simply a straightforward in-person book club.
Yes, because not everyone's
and it's infinite variety.
Not everyone's having to be sort of polite about it. You can be very honest about it, and if you don't like something, you can say so. And I might pay attention to that, but I'm going to tread, I'm going to tread lightly here because I know you're a book reviewer.
Yeah.
But I used to take my cues from the reviews in the Sunday papers, and I don't anymore because, unlike you, most of them are just recycled press releases.
Right. Unfortunately true. I just got an email from a viewer just the other day on that exact same subject, saying, what am I even reading here? What this doesn't seem like a book review. And I agree. And then finally, we'll finish up with Cat Jack with number 4. It was very interesting to hear briefly about your stay in Africa. How old were you? Can you elaborate on your experiences there and how it affected you?
Well, it was between the ages of 7 and 10, so I can't elaborate hugely. But yeah, it did. It I think it changed my worldview. Sort of being taken out of the west of England, suddenly I'm in Harare. And
change your worldview.
Yeah, it's a lot of it I was sheltered from. A lot of the things that you learn after you get back that everybody was sheltered from. This was an authoritarian, or was becoming an authoritarian state. When I went out in 83, it wasn't. It just got independence. There was money pouring in. There was international development pouring in. People were getting educated. The economy was booming. It was the good times. In the years after I left, you could see how things turned out, but I think the seeds of it were there then. Mugabe wasn't president at the time. He was prime minister. But, his party won a suspiciously high proportion of election results all the time. And then you realize that people were being threatened after the event. Some of these bits was what my parents told me afterwards, and some of it is just what you've read afterwards. But so it's made me maybe a bit more cynical, I think. But also, I was going to a school where it wasn't just, it was a private school, but it had Zimbabwean kids and kids from elsewhere, where lots of the private schools were, just the visiting businessmen, just the diplomats' children's, that sort of thing. So it gave a good mix.
Would you ever consider going back? Or going somewhere else in Africa?
I'd like to certainly go back at some point, and perhaps not to live there. I'm probably sort of worldly wise enough now to know that I wouldn't enjoy parts of it, but I would absolutely love to go back to I mean, it's a beautiful country, Zimbabwe. And it was ruined by an authoritarian. Well, there you go. There's a mix. There's only been 2 authoritarian presidents who wore a business suit and a baseball cap at the same time. One of them was Robert Mugabe, and the other is your current president.
Yes.
It's not a good look.
No, it's not. Enjoy. You had firsthand experience. Good Lord. Okay, well, we can move on to Judy Gibson. You mentioned that you have a job. I don't need to know what it is, but if only your work is related to literature or reading, or is it something completely unrelated like guitar making or astronomy?
Well, yes and no, because it is completely unrelated, but it's nowhere near as interesting as guitar making or astronomy. So I work for a institutional asset management firm, and I move pension funds from A to B.
So nothing literary at all. And
No.
You mentioned that your coworkers are not literary.
No, I mean, a couple of people read books, but it's just not generally.
So is there I imagine that there's a kind of a depressurizing that happens when you get back from work.
That's what the commute is for. So I
was just going to say, I know a lot of people who depressurize on the commute. That's what they use it for, so that when they get back home, they're not in work mode anymore.
Yeah, and that is important. And when everyone was working from home full time, it did become difficult to sort of distance yourself from it because you were sat there with the computer. Oh, something else has happened, just another email, just a little bit of extra stuff. Actually going into and leaving the office does help, and it is purely dedicated reading time as well. So there's a good hour and a half a day there where it's just headphones on, so I don't have to listen to the endless announcements warning me about suspicious packages, and just read.
Yeah, you had to shift for COVID, and then you had to shift back.
Yes. And they're trying to make us shift back to a full-time office at the moment, I believe. That's happening.
I don't understand that. I really don't. I understand it from a mercantile point of view, but
that's it.
Thoroughly demonstrated during the COVID pandemic that people do not need to go to workplaces. That was thoroughly demonstrated, and yet businesses want to say, "No, we want you to come in."
Because the cities can't be empty, because if the cities are empty, the offices are empty. If the offices are empty, your real estate investment funds will not make any money.
Then we have another bibliophile reads asking, if you could travel back in time and convince an author to pursue a career other than writing, who would it be? You already know my answer. So you can come up with an answer of your own.
Well, what's your answer to this one then?
Stephen King, of course. Of course.
What did he
In fact, I would not only suggest that he pick another career, I would suggest the career, a minesweeper. That's what I think he should have gone into at age 15.
I mean, there are plenty. But usually
is there an author living today that you think just has no talent at all, zero talent? In other words, they are in the wrong profession.
Plenty, but they are such horrible people that I would want them spending time writing books rather than doing anything else. I mean, imagine Boris Johnson had not written his books. He would have gone and done something god awful elsewhere. Dan Brown. Sorry, I don't like him. He's a hack. I mean, look, I read a lot of pulp literature, but it's harmless fun. This is just it's a level of cynicism to it
Oh, right. No, you're right. Pulp literature is harmless fun. That's exactly right. There's never going to be an ostentatious, Folio Society leather-bound edition of something from the pulps. They're never going to be taken as anything other than what they are, which is. So you would have to pick somebody whose body of work is worthless. And
I'm going Dan Brown. I mean, I've read. I know I've read Da Vinci Code. I may have read another one, and it's just. I mean, I've said it before on the channel. There was a point, I think I was reading one of it, and he was just. It isn't until he touches upon a subject that you know something about.
The minute that happens, it all comes crashing down.
Yeah, exactly. And he started talking about Stonehenge, and I was sort of reading it, going. So he's explaining the history of Stonehenge. It's like, you have in front of you, I can tell you have the tourist guide and a thesaurus. And that's how you wrote the book.
The thing about him, though, is that no matter what subject it is, you have that reaction. I've never met anyone who said, well, that's true for most of the digressions that his characters go on, most of the info dumps. But in this particular book, he brushed on a subject that I know, and he was spot on. No, he's never. It makes you wonder what he himself actually knows.
He knows how to make money.
Background there, but no.
Look, he knows how to whip it up into a story, which fine. But I remain unconvinced. I don't know what he would have done. I don't know if he had a job whilst he was a struggling author. But yeah, I mean, I would be depriving myself of the pleasure of hating him a little bit. But I think that's a sacrifice worth making.
I actually know what he would have done either. I met him once a long time ago when he was not yet famous. Da Vinci Code was out but had not yet taken off, and he was actually going bookstore to bookstore with a handler to sign stock, like a normal person, like an ordinary mortal being. And he was at the desk, and I was talking to him. I was always the one that talked to authors. And when he was finished, he said, well, I'm going to leave now. Good luck recommending the book. And I said, well, I won't be able to recommend it until I've read it. And the look on his face was like I hit him with a 2x4. It never crossed his mind that I would need to
reviewer. That's what you're there for.
Then we have Phoebe Baker. Have you read The Carpathians by Paul Dixon? And if so, what did you think of it?
Well, I have not, but I did see that question, and I had a look at the book, and it's a modern science fiction, and I think it's about first contact, or sort of passive first contact. It's going to a planet and finding that there are artifacts there, which 2001, Rogue Moon gives me those sorts of vibes. So I would not be averse to giving it a go, but I've not read it.
And if I could follow up on that, whether it's Paul Dixon or somebody else, let's say you encountered a description or maybe a booktuber's enthusiasm for it, and it actually did that ignition process where you think, oh, I am bought in on this. I do want this. Would the skinflint, the aforementioned skinflint, kick in if your option was to buy it at a retail bookstore? Can you conceive?
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I have bought books at retail, but usually I will sort of, I will say, well, maybe I'll ask for that for Christmas or something like that. So I read recently. I recently read Spice by Roger Cowley, which was full price hardback, which is brilliant. He's not as good as his Venice book, City of Fortune, but it's that age of discovery stuff, which is it fires the imagination. And calling it Spice, it's just like, oh, okay. So it's a little bit like the joke that the British Empire was just bought up from nothing because our food was bland and we wanted to make it a little hotter or something. But I can sometimes buy new books, but it just really doesn't happen very often. I'm much happier looking through dusty piles of stuff and unearthing something that I was not expecting. Whereas if I go to a Waterstones, I'm going to see the same thing, you know, in Truro or in Aberdeen. It's going to be pretty much the same stock.
And then we have Rainy at Beyond Books. You're having dinner with your favorite author. Who is it? What are you talking about?
I haven't got anything imaginative for this one. I'm going to go with Shakespeare. Now, I've said how unliterary my workplace is, but the office, outside the office in the courtyard, is the site of Blackfriars. It's the old Blackfriars Theatre. So every day where I go into my office, I'm treading the same ground where The Tempest was first performed.
Lord,
it's called Playhouse Yard, but there's other than the fact that it's called Playhouse Yard, there is not a plaque, there is not a statue, there is nothing. Obviously, the old buildings are gone. There have been fires, there have been demolitions. But it's where Shakespeare acted. It's where, you know, this is the place where they first, you know, because it was the first indoor theatre, this is the place where they had to, when the candles ran out, they had to redo all the candles, so they decided to have an interval. It's a pretty, you know,
so around
it's a little bit secret as well. Not many people know about it, so it's just
when you're there and looking at it, are there any physical, not the buildings, I mean physical features of the topography that at least Shakespeare would recognize? Oh, that
yes. There's a couple of sort of like churchyards, graveyards, maybe some of the churches he might recognize, but obviously, you know, it was Blackfriars, so it was an abbey. So even by Shakespeare's time, it had recently been sort of taken over, torn down by Henry VIII for the dissolution of the abbeys. But the layout is the same. The layout of all those little streets is unchanged, because even after the Great Fire of London sort of swept everything away, they did have all these plans. Well, we're gonna make a planned city. It was going to look pretty much like what Paris looks like. And then they tried to buy everybody's land, and they came across, you know, lots of Londoners who told them to, you know, do one. So they couldn't afford to buy all the land. So all of the layout of the place stayed the same. So it is a rabbit warren, massive thoroughfares and tiny little lanes with odd names. He would recognize some of it. Cloakroom Lane is round the corner, which is apparently where he stayed when he was in London.
Well, that runs us out of questions that were sent in. May I finish us up with a couple of questions of my own?
Of course.
I'm dying to know what BookTube means to you now. What you think of it now. Has that radically changed from when you started?
Yes.
Now you know that there are people who wait on your videos, there are people who watch your videos and like them. You're very much part of a community. If a stranger,
I don't think about that part of it as much, which is, I mean, I have, you know, obviously we're doing this because I've now got over 2,000 subscribers, but it is this usually the same coterie of people that I will be interacting with in comments. I think what it means to me, having done it, is having started as a consumer of it, these were just people who were on the TV or on the screen. Now all of a sudden you're talking to them, and then you're reading stuff with them. And I mean, it's literally just sort of joining, you know, it is joining a community. So, you know, it means all of that entails. You know, usually all the good stuff, occasionally, you know, the sad news like we had last week. And
that's the price you pay.
Yeah.
If you're going to genuinely participate, it's the price you pay. And if you're going to keep everything at arm's length, well, I don't see the appeal. If you were going to do it that way, I don't see the appeal.
There are different types of BookTube. There is the BookTube where it is just people talking at you and very little interaction. I don't speak to those people. There are the ones that are just trying to sell you something. There are the ones who are just they make their money out of BookTube drama, publishing drama, or negative reviews, and I can't get behind it. It's cynical rather than enthusiastic. I'm here for the enthusiasm side of it.
But you mentioned that it started out with these are people on the TV, but now you're one of them.
Yeah, but I can't think. I can't think like that. It's
but it's true. I mean, all of your coworkers who don't know and would be indifferent if they did, they know that there's a whole group of people out there who actually make content. They put stuff online instead of just absorbing it. And you're one of those people.
Well, now I'm never going to be able to record a video.
I just find that fascinating. That's all. Because all of us who are doing this, we have people watching our videos that we will never know. They don't ever crop up in the comment section. But they are watching. And for them, we are people on TV. You're one of them now. You're one of those people on TV.
Am I fictional?
That was going to be my next question.
No, it's that is your experience of it is for other people. Your experience of doing it is that's how you see other people. I can't see myself like that. I think it's like all that sort of stuff is like, when I'm talking to a camera about a book, I imagine I'm talking to one person or a very small group of people. I think I would be constantly second guessing myself if I was trying to think what everyone might want to watch. I'll just plow on and do.
Well, it obviously works.
My stuff.
I mean, the stats speak for themselves. Very few people who start a channel on YouTube get to 2,000 subscribers. So, comparatively speaking, very few people do. We hear all about the success stories, but that's a success.
Yeah, I'm never going to be able to retire on it, but it's the best hobby. It's as far as midlife crises go, it's very low impact.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's do this again at 3,000.
Well, that's a date. I'll hold you to it. But yeah, that's thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who has been subscribing.
Yes, these are terrific questions too. So.
Yes, it's there's some brain ticklers there, and perhaps Dan Brown, if you're watching, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But until next time, bye.